And welcome to the Great American Culture Clash. I'm your host, Kevin Hagler, alongside Joel Mendelson. We have a great show for you today. In 90 minutes, we'll be talking to Bruce Carlson, but our first guest is prolific, to say the least. With us now is MIT professor, intellectual, and author of over 100 books. If my memory serves me right, he is the eighth most cited man, next to the Bible and Plato, among others. His latest is Gaza in Crisis, Reflections on Israel's War Against the Middle East, with co-author Ilan Pappé. Making the Future, the Unipolar Imperial Moment, is due out in March of this year. Professor Chomsky, thanks so much for coming on the program.
Glad to be with you.
So, recent protests have broken out in Tunisia, Egypt, and Yemen. We do know that the protests are a backlash against oppression and undemocratic regimes, but can you put all this in a greater context?
Well, the greater context, I think, was explained rather well by a well-known Middle East specialist. He's head of the Carnegie Endowment Middle East Research Center, a former Jordanian official. Marwan Washer, when this broke out, he said the standard doctrine in both within the Arab world and elsewhere is that there's nothing wrong, everything is under control. Meaning, as long as the population is quiet and apathetic and passive, you can disregard them, maintain dictatorships that are corrupt and brutal and torture and so on, as long as they do what you want. I mean, that's the definition of U.S. policy. And there's nothing new about it. We shouldn't be surprised. It's been going on first of all, it's the same everywhere else in the world, and in fact, even at home. As long as the population can be kept quiet, we'll do what we want. And it's the standard position of the powerful. Every once in a while it breaks down, and then policies have to be adjusted somehow. Tactics have to be adjusted. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing it in a rather spectacular way. The uprising in Tunisia, which was the spark, was dramatic enough. But what's happening in Egypt is just a spectacular display of courage and commitment on the part of a huge population that's been suffering severe repression under a brutal dictatorship that for which we're the main support.
Now, Mubarak has come out and appointed a new cabinet, and it doesn't seem like the people are responding to it very well. President Obama appears to be kind of toting a fine line between support of the protesters and the Mubarak regime. What is your take on President Obama's allegiance?
He's following a pattern which is so standard that it's right out of a standard playbook. The Washer doctrine that I quoted, as long as everything's under control, forget about the population, that's just what Obama's position was. Then, if things seem to be getting out of control, you've got to adjust. And the first adjustment you make is to try to maintain the same system with cosmetic adjustments. And if that doesn't work, the next step typically is, and probably will be in this case, say, okay, we can't sustain our favorite dictator any longer. We have to get rid of him. We reverse course 180 degrees. We pretend we've always been on the side of popular democracy and freedom. We erase the past. And then we try to adjust tactics so that the incoming system will be more or less obedient and accepting of our the main geostrategical goals. I mean, there's a long list of this. You have to be kind of blind not to see it. I mean, Marcos in the Philippines and Duvalier in Haiti and Chun in South Korea under Reagan, Ceausescu in Romania, the worst of the East European gangsters, where Bush #1 had to shift policy. Suharto in Indonesia, Clinton had to go through the routine. I mean, it just goes over and on and on. That's the way you maintain, you try to maintain control and domination. And it often works for long periods. Population suffers, but the sectors of extreme wealth and power do fine. American investors do fine. The government pursues its geopolitical goals. It works until it breaks down. We're now watching it in a very sensitive and significant area. What really concerns the U.S. policymakers is that it might spread to the oil-producing regions. Egypt is extremely important in U.S. geopolitics, most important country in the Arab, most largest, most potentially rich and powerful country of the Arab world. But Saudi Arabia is the jewel in the crown. So far, that's not tottering. And in fact, the dictator of Saudi Arabia is about the only Arab ruler who's come out openly in support of President Mubarak, indicating that he assumes that they've got things in hand, maybe wrongly. But if there's a threat inside Saudi Arabia, all bets are off. That's where the main wealth of the region is.
But is it a conscious decision on the U.S. and President Obama's part to say, we know these folks are dictators, we know these folks aren't doing right by their people, but we are going to do only what's best for our country without thinking about human rights? Is it a conscious decision on the U.S.'s part, or is it just a natural inclination, if you will?
It's both. It's a conscious decision, doesn't have to be done. On the other hand, it's routine. As I say, it comes out of a standard playbook, and there's very little variation from administration to administration. I mean, some are harsher, some are milder, but the basic guidelines don't change very much. And in fact, when they say we're going to do what's in our interest, it's worth bearing in mind that that does not mean in the interest of the American people. We don't have any interest in suppressing the populations of Egypt and Tunisia and on and on. I mean, take Saudi Arabia, the primary ally. I mean, it's also the most extreme radical Islamist country in the world, and in fact the center of radical Islamist ideology, and even the center of the ideological center of the terrorist movements. By supporting them, the government is not helping you and me, not helping American people. On the other hand, it's instigating terrorism.
Let's move back to Egypt. President Mubarak, if he is eventually ousted, there is a fear among Americans that possibly a more extremist government will take place. Is this a legitimate fear in your view?
If we continue to block secular nationalism and democracy, chances are an extremist government an extremist force might take over. That's the kind of thing that happens. If you block the efforts at democratic change by popular movements which are by no means extremist, if that's blocked, people will turn to in other directions, and other forces will become powerful.